Greetings and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability around the world and across Africa. I'm George Mutalemwa, moderating this session on behalf of the Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA. Our theme today is Whence We Come, Which Way Forward? And the speaker is Jalil Muntaqim. He is co-founder of the National Jericho Movement to free all political prisoners. And he's behind the establishment of the In the Spirit of Mandela coalition. I'm sure he's going to talk more about himself and his work. And so it's really a pleasure and honor to have you, Brother Jalil. And I thank everybody on this call for your time. So now please join me in welcoming Jalil Muntaqim.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, peace, pastor Baragani, John Bo. Thank you for that introduction, George. I really appreciate it. Let me give a little bit more background of who I am and my experiences and why I am in the position I am today. I'm a veteran member of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. I did 49 plus years inside U.S. penal slave system. And it's important for us to understand that this is, in fact, a slave system according to the law. 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution informs us that slavery and voluntary servitude, except for those who've been convicted of a crime, shall exist in the United States or its jurisdiction. So essentially what we have here is that the United States is, in fact, a slave nation, right? According to the law, according to the Constitution. Slavery was never abolished in this country, right? It was transformed from chattel slavery into penal slavery the very same day. At the end of chattel slavery, they created penal slavery. So slavery in this country never was abolished. And so for 49 plus years, I was in the penal slave system as a result of my work and actions on fighting for the liberation and independence of Black, brown, and indigenous people in this country. Now today, I'd like to show, the discussion is titled, From Whence We Come, Which Way Forward, right? And it's important for us to have a clear understanding what created the conditions of the world that we're in today. How did that happen? And I'd like to begin with the Papal Bull of 1493. Why is that important? Because that bull, as you can read on screen, can you see it on screen? I want to see it. Okay, very good. That Papal Bull informs us that when they initiated the foundation for which we have a world based upon this aberrant idea of white supremacy. Okay, this is where it begins. This is where it started. At least in our contemporary time, in the last 400, 500 years. All right. And so as you read, it says here that this Papal Bull by Pope Alexander VI initiated, well, when the conquistadores, the Spanish, the French, the Portuguese move into colonizing the world, right, is based upon this Papal Bull, right, who instructed them to do so. All right. And it states here, if they are unwilling or unable to become subservient to the Papal Bull, subservient to the Catholic Church, subservient to the Spanish, right, and the Portuguese, they're to be enslaved. This is where it begins. And so that's the reason why we don't have the Incas anymore. We don't have the Aztecs anymore. We don't have the Arawak anymore. We don't have the Tianos anymore. There are nations of people that has been wiped off the planet, right? Conquistadores. That's what that's about. And this is what we're confronting today. This is the foundation of imperialism, the foundation of capitalism, the foundation of this ideal, this aberrant ideal of white supremacy. Why I say it's an aberrant ideal? Because here in this country, right, we have a book called DSM-5, DSM-6, which is the diagnostic book that psychiatrists use, right? It's their Bible. And in that book, it says that superiority complex, a God complex, is a mental disorder. It's a mental disorder. Okay? That's not my writing. That's their writing. That's what they say. So now if you extrapolate white supremacy, what does that inform you? Crazy. They're out of their minds. They believe that they are better than any other people on this planet. And they function that way. That's what happened to the Aztecs. Right? Now ask me, I'm asking you, is this humane? What thinking, what mentality does this to people? Right? Well, here's the beginning. This is where it began. This is the results of that papal bull. Let's understand this history. Because we don't understand the history, we don't know how we're going to move forward. Right? And so in 1863, at the Emancipation Proclamation, look what happened. Can you see that? Can you read that? Huh? Let's understand what's going on here. That's the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, when they emancipated these Africans, right, at the same time, they created these. That's Field Order number 15. Field Order number 15 was issued by General Tecumseh Sherman. And a field order in the course of the Civil War, right? Course of the Civil War is as if it was a directive coming from the president's office. Right? That's how it is used. And this field order set up the condition for those emancipated slaves to create a government of themselves, create some degrees of authority and sovereignty. Right, from St. Charles South to the Florida Basin, all that land was in control of the 3 million Africans who were emancipated and began to establish what we call freedmen bureaus. The freedmen bureaus was essentially the organizations of governing of these Africans. Okay, but then what happened? 13th Amendment, right? I just made mention of, right? After the Emancipation Proclamation, the liberation, the independence, and emancipation of slavery, the ending of slavery, chattel slavery. But look at what it says. Slavery and voluntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. So slavery was never abolished in this country. The United States is a slave nation. The world should know that, according to this law. Right, and they decided that they had to figure out a ways how to put these people back into a condition of servitude, and they came up with the black codes. Right, conditions of servitude, of second-class citizenry, the black codes. This is Mississippi, South Carolina, black codes. So we come from the enslavement of African people to the internment of African people in penal slavery and servitude, and they create the laws to usher them into those conditions. The black codes, vagrancy laws. Just 3 years ago, the United States Supreme Court just ruled that if a person is caught in the street vagrant, he can be put to jail. Vagrancy laws. And then they came with the 14th Amendment. Let's understand this. Because as you've been reading the history of this country, or reading what this idiot that we have in the White House today, trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment, right? Birth citizenship, right? But read what it says. Now, this is law was put into place after the 13th Amendment, right? The 14th Amendment. But black people in this country has always been second-class citizens, right? This is what they decided to do with the 3 million Africans who are emancipated. What to do with them? These are white men making decisions about black people. And we had no choice in the matter. We didn't have a plebiscite vote. We have opportunity to decide whether we want to go back to Africa, establish our own homeland, right? Or become part of this experiment of white supremacy. We didn't have a choice in the matter. And that's the problem that we're going to have to confront with this guy we got in the White House today, right? And his efforts to end a birthright citizenship. Because for us, African people in this country, we were imported property. We was never considered to be true, actual Americans, quote unquote. We're imported property. So they end this, what that means for us, for Black people in this country. They can declare us have not been citizens in the first place. This is how this thing is going. And we have to be conscious of this reality. But it's deep. It came back with the 15th Amendment. I'm gonna show you how they lie. Look at that. Unfortunately, white women and women in general were not given the opportunity to vote back then, right? In 1870. But Black men were. Well, I had to ask that question. Were they? Really? Because this is the truth. If this is true, then we didn't need to have the voting rights of 1964 and 1965. Voting Rights Act, which they're diminishing, what they're trying to get rid of. If this is true, so understand they're liars. The basis of this country is based upon lies. So remember I made mention of the land, the territory that was being emancipated. It was being creating autonomous regions for African people in this country, right? Field order number 15. But then what did they do? The Hayes-Tillman Compromise. Rutherford B. Hayes won the collegiate vote for the presidency. Samuel Tillman, who was a Confederate, won the popular vote. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Won the popular vote. So they had to come to a compromise. And the compromise was this: yes, Rutherford B. Hayes, you can have the White House, but you got to move the Yankee troops from the territory that was defending these emancipated Africans. Right? Remove the troops. He agreed. I will remove the Yankee troops from that territory that was from St. John's and Charleston to the Florida Basin. We removed the troops. And you know what happened to remove the troops? 100 years of pure terror. For 100 years of pure brutality, savagery. This is the mentality. This is the reality. 100 years. And they created the first migration of African people out of the South, into the North, into the West, into the East. Right? Ku Klux Klan. Because the Confederates turned into who? The Ku Klux Klan. There's never been a break. There's always been that war. And now they control the government. The same people, same mentality, the same thought process, the same aberrant behavior of white supremacy. That's who they are. Right? Can you see that? Are they doing that today? Are they marching in the streets today? Do you see that? It's history. This is what we have been surviving. Huh? 2017, 2025, 2017. It's the same forces. This is what we're up against. Huh? Look at that. Same forces. Now, you know damn well, excuse my language, but you know doggone well that that's what black, brown, and indigenous people that have been bodies all over the Congressional Plaza. They would have mowed them down. Mowed them down. Why not them? Because they believed they had the same ideals. They may not like what they did, how they went about doing it, but the goal and objective, oh, they're on that page. They're on that same page. To nullify the black vote. That's what they was there for. To nullify the black vote. Now remember, back in 1870, they gave the black man the right to vote. Then we had to fight for the Voting Rights Act, 1965 and 64 and 65. Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act. And now they're trying to nullify the black vote. Right? Now, we have been told that to have the vote is the means for which we can establish some degrees of deciding how we're going to live, our history, right? Self-determination, by using the vote, power, right? If you nullify the vote, you're nullifying black power. If you're nullifying black power, you're nullifying black people. There's a correlation. There's direct line. Right? This is what they do. They kill us. Yes. This is the reality we're confronting here in this corporate entity they call the United States. Right? This guy, well, last year, the year before last, murdered this brother on the subway in New York City. Got acquitted. And the very next week, he's in the White House box watching a sports event. This guy, Neely. Right? The white supremacists gave him millions of dollars. He's a millionaire now for killing black people. This is the reality we're confronting. Another guy. When are they going to stop? This is inside prison. Beat him to death. Right? This is about 8 months ago. When are they going to stop? When was this come to an end? That's the reality today. This is your America. This is your America. We have to tell the world what we're confronting. We have Nazis in the White House. The head of the military, Secretary of Defense, is a white supremacist. Right? He's head of the Marines, the Army, the Navy, Coast Guard, National Guard, a white supremacist. Right? Head spec. You have a Proud Boy who's the head of the Center for Counterintelligence. Proud Boy, white supremacist. And you imagine what he's doing. They're making a hit list. They created a hit list, counterintelligence. And you know they were teaching their own people these techniques. This is what we're confronting here. This is serious. Right? Now let's look at this. The Monroe Doctrine. American exceptionalism. Okay. Right? And the Monroe Doctrine informs that on the Western Hemisphere, they told the Europeans, don't come over here. We got this. Right? This same idea, the Monroe Doctrine, is the same idea of what? The Papal Bull. The same idea, the same concept, the same belief system. And this individual here, Obama, oh yeah, we applauded, we lauded him come. But he became what? The deporter in chief. He deported more people out of this country than any other president prior to this guy, the dictator. Right? So we have black people in high places, but they have a colonial mentality. Their thinking is that of being as subservient to the system of white supremacy and then capitalist imperialism at all costs. Black faces in high places with no real power. Right? This is show. Okay. And we found what the backlash is. But keep an idea that the hands-off policy, right? Meaning that no other European can come into the Western Hemisphere to what? To colonize. To colonize. No, that's going to be their duty. It's the Monroe Doctrine, right? And so we have to ask the question, because now we have to really get into what has happened to these Africans who, for 400 years, has suffered dehumanization, degradation, devaluation. Right? Let me just keep this in mind. I'm gonna ask you a question. What's a Negro? Because we're gonna talk about this trauma. What's a Negro? Tell me what's a Negro? Tell me, where's Negro land? Where's Negro land? Right? Look at the depth of this trauma, where people was named by their enemy, and they accepted that name, the identity. Black people in this country, for the most part, are identityless. They have not substantiated who they are as African people, because of the degree of colonization. All right? So Al-Haj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X asked the question, who taught you to hate yourself? Right? This colonized mentality, this trauma, 400 years of being denied your human existence, degraded, diminished. You don't think that has an effect? Over 400 years? You think people have been impacted, been traumatized? Suffered over 100 years of lynching, of pure KKK terror and savagery? You think that has an impact on Black people in this country? Of course it has. Traumatized. What do you name? You name your pet. You name your property. That's who you name. They named us, and we accepted that name. Psychological trauma. That's what we have to overcome. So we're in the process of building what we call decolonization programs across the country. We won't get into that. But I just want to go this capsule, this snapshot of history and the impact it has had on us in this country, but throughout the world. And I showed you where it began, 1493, the Papal Bull. Now it extended itself for hundreds of years. And this is what we are fighting today. And so I was in prison, as I said, 49 plus years. Right? I went in at the age of 19 to come out till I was 68. All the time I was in prison, I continued to fight. Right? They changed the territory, but the fight continued. While I was in prison, I established the first national newspaper for prisoners called Armed Spirit. I organized the first petition to the United Nations back in 1979. That was recorded by the United Nations. Right? Dealing with the issues of prisons and political prisoners. At that time, the international jurists came to the United States and found out that, in fact, the United States had political prisoners. It's important to understand this, right? Because to recognize the fact that we have political prisoners, recognize that we have dissent in this country. We're in denial. Okay. And so while I was inside, I asked my comrades, Jihad Abdul Muhammad, who was then the chairman of the National Jericho Movement organization that I established while I was in prison in support of political prisoners. I said, listen, we need to bring the international jurists back. So he brought it to the attention of another comrade of ours, former member of Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, Sekou Odinga, and another organizer and comrade of ours by the name of Matt Myers. Some of you may know Matt, right? And together they say, yes, Jalil, we will bring back the international tribunals, right? But this time we're going to bring the issues of genocide. Okay. So we had the tribunal, international jurists, 9 from around the world, came to the United States, and we had the International Tribunal was held at the Malcolm X Shabazz Research and Education Center, right, which used to be known as the Audubon, where Al-Haj Malik Shabazz was assassinated. Appropriate place to have the tribunal. Okay. And after 30 witnesses, and you can go to International Tribunal, you can YouTube International Tribunal and find all the information pertaining to all the hearings that were held, 6 hearings that was held. It's on YouTube, right? Or you can go to www, let me put it in the chat, www.spiritmandela.org. All right. spiritmandela.org, right? And you can learn more about the work that we're doing going forward, what we're going to build, what we call the People's Senate. So they found the United States guilty of charges of genocide on 5 charges. 5 charges. 5 charges was what? Environmental racism, right? We know that many of our people, Black, brown, indigenous, live in territories, live in areas which is contaminated, right? Environmental racism, right? This is why we have the highest levels of diabetes, highest levels of heart disease, highest levels of all kinds of ailments that's subject to environmental racism and subject to health inequities. It was the second charge. Health inequities. Why does white people live longer than Black people in this country? How's that? Health inequities, right? And now they're trying to destroy basically the whole health system. Okay. The third charge, mass incarceration. You know, they're going around as slave patrollers used to do, okay, in our communities, rounding up our young people, put them in prison. They create the conditions for them to engage in illegal activities, capitalist activities, and they put them in prison, right? We know that our communities has been biological, chemical warfare against our people. How we know that? Because they told us. They make movies on it. The crack epidemic, right? Who brought the crack into our communities? The CIA. Government-sponsored chemical warfare. We lost 2 generations. 2 generations gone. A result of chemical warfare, biological chemical warfare on our people. You know, we experiment on us. You know, you heard about this, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. They've been doing it ever since. Right? Okay. Mass incarceration, right? State-sanctioned violence against our people. Police murdering us. State-sanctioned violence. Because police are agents of the state. And more often than not, they get away with killing us with impunity. State-sanctioned violence. Right? Decisions of political prisoners. Right? The second charge. Or 4th charge. Right? Health inequities, environmental racism, mass incarceration, existence of political prisoners, and state-sanctioned violence. Those were the 5 charges. And this esteemed body, international jurors found the United States guilty on all 5 charges. Accumulatively, tantamount to genocide. Y'all have read the 1948 Convention on the Prevention of Genocide, right? I'm also an author. This is one of my books. I don't know if you can see it here. Maybe come a little closer. Give me a minute. Yeah, you can see my crazy office here. This is the book. Right, we own genocide. We own our own liberators.
Excuse me, hold it up and let me screenshot that.
Okay.
One
That's
moment. Once more.
Okay.
This is important. What now? Up a little, right there. Thank you very much
Okay.
for posterity.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get back to my. Okay. So, in my book, I talk about the convention, right? Because it's important for us to understand those laws and what we are fighting for, what we're arguing in support of our own liberation, independence from the system of white supremacy. Okay. And it states here that the present convention of genocide means any of the following acts are committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part, right? A national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, right? It says killing members of the group. They know will be killing us. Is there any doubt about that? Is there any doubt about that? Okay. Causing serious bodily harm and mental harm to members of the group. Yes, we've been traumatized, right? We've lost identity. It took away, listen, and they brought us to this country, where it was what? Igbos, Fulanis, Yoruba, Fan, Mandinka. They've been miscegenated, right? Not only did we miscegenate with all the various tribes and nations they brought over to this country, but we miscegenated with who? The Spanish, the English, the Dutch, the Portuguese, miscegenated, raping our women, right? Creating breedings, right? But who else have we miscegenated with? The Seminoles, the Cherokee, the Creek. My great-grandmother's Creek, right? Muskogee Creek out of Alabama, right? They've created a new bloodline, a new genetic bloodline. There's no other people on this planet that has this miscegenation, right? But we have lost our identity as a result. Let's go on. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So that means you don't have to wipe you out. And if you look at statistics, the census of today, right, from the last 25 years, the population of Black people in this country is almost stagnant. Our growth is almost stagnant. In proportion to other populations, Black people in this country are not growing. It's genocidal. But we're not conscious of this reality. Okay. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, sterilizing our women without their consent. Yes. There's a case in T'Challa, California. There's a prison system where they argued that women going into to see a gynecologist and come out sterilized. 30 years ago, there was a big case in Puerto Rico where they were sterilizing women wholesale, preventing births. But let's look at mass incarceration, right? Same thing. They put you in prison, 16, 17, keep you in prison until you gray hair. At a time where you're most apt to repopulate, to reproduce. Okay? Look at that. You go in this young man, come out an old man. No children. Lucky for me, at 19, I had one in the incubator. Right? My daughter's mother was pregnant at the time of my arrest, or my capture. So I had one child. Okay? But I met many young men inside, no children. Right? Growing old inside prisons. Mass incarceration. All right. It's a forcibly transferring children of a group to another group. And we know that we did that with the indigenous. Right? Gave them to missionaries, cut off their hair, took away their language, changed their names. That's genocide. Okay, and genocide is punishable. Now keep this in mind, 18 U.S.C. 1091 is the United States treaty to the Genocide Convention of 1948. And basically the same language. They're in violation of their own laws. They're liars. Always have been. And so what we're doing, we're building what we call the People's Senate. Because we decided after the tribunal that we had in 2021, it was necessary for us to move ourselves from harm. We have to create conditions where we move ourselves away from harm. Right? And so we're in the process of what we call building the People's Senate and organizing in our communities across the country. Right? And you will be hearing more about this work called the People's Senate and why it's important. Because we have to create alternative systems of governing. We now live in a plutocratic fascist government. That's what it is today. And we have to know that. All right. We have to remove ourselves from this ostrich syndrome, where our head is buried in the sand and our ass is up in the air to be kicked again. Okay. 1340 is another campaign that we are organizing to end mass incarceration. Because why? Because the system is still a penal slave system, according to the law. That's why we have mass incarceration. They make an exorbitant profit off of free labor. Pennies on the dollar. They have corporate entities invested in the penal system. Why? It's free labor. The slave system still exists in the United States. This is a slave nation. And how are they going to maintain the system? They're building cop cities across this country. Cop cities. Training law enforcement in what? Urban warfare. You have to ask the question, urban warfare against who? Why are they training law enforcement to engage in urban warfare? This is what's going on in this country, across the country. Right? Again, this is no longer a democracy, if it ever has been. It's a plutocracy. The rich rules. Okay. We got 13 billionaires in the White House, in the cabinet of the White House. 13 billionaires. Keep this in mind. We have 740 billionaires in this country and a population of 330 million. Right? They control all the wealth, accumulated all the wealth of Western Europe. All the wealth of Western Europe, accumulated wealth in Western Europe in the hands of 740 billionaires in this country. That's a hard reality to suffer. Okay. So we now live in a fascist social order, right? And you see the extent from which they're engaging with this deportation, mass deportation. And they're building concentration camps all along the southern border. Now, that's not the first time you use concentration camps. Remember they did in World War II against the Japanese. So this is not something new for this country. It's part of the playbook. They just dust it off. Demonize a group of people, incarcerate them and deport them. Call them illegals. How can anybody on the planet be an illegal? Where's your humanity? Well, that's our thinking. Right? So today you're human and tomorrow you're an illegal. You're an immigrant, you're an other, you're an alien. And those who have power treat you with that. So they're building cop cities across this country. We have to understand the nature of this, what it really means. Right? We're in dire straits here. And I know the world is waiting on us. So we're building People's Senate. We're breaking down the country into these districts. This is what we're going to organize. This is what we're building towards now. Again, go to spiritofmandela.org/the People's Senate. Understand the work that we're doing. We have to remove ourselves from harm. Right? We have to end this system, this average system of white supremacy. We have to do the hard work. Okay. So that's the basis of my talk today, right? Give you an understanding of what's going on in this country, what we're doing, the activist community is doing, how we're building a foundational base from which we can remove ourselves from harm, right? To resist the system of fascism, resist the system of plutocracy, right? To resist the system of white supremacy. That's the goal and objective. And we need your help. We need your help, right? We have, over the years, been supporting other liberation struggles, other independent movements. But now we telling the world we need your help. You have to help us. Listen, the world will not be free. Keep this in mind. You heard it from me. The world will not be free until Black people are free. Keep that in mind. Look, anywhere in the world, Australia, New Zealand, England, Germany, France, Italy, South Africa, Brazil, Black people are downtrodden. Throughout the world. All right? The world will not be free until Black people are free. We have changed the whole dynamics of how we see ourselves and learn our own common humanity on this planet as a species on this planet. Our common humanity, that is our fight, right? That's the kind of alienation and otherness that the white supremacists espouses, promote, and propagate with violence. Extreme violence. This is the only country that used the atomic bomb, not once, twice. Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The only country that used chemical warfare, as they did in Vietnam, Agent Orange, even on their own soldiers. The only country that killed 1 million people in 6 months. Iraqi war, over a lie. Because they knew they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They knew it. How we know they know it? Because Colin Powell went to the United Nations and told them he was duped. He was told a lie. 1 million people gone off the planet. These people are vicious. And we turn a blind eye. Right? We are suffering cognitive dissonance. We see it, but we know it's like we don't see it. You know? I'll give you an example. I was in prison, right? I told you 49 something years. I was in isolation, right? Had me in what they call the box, isolation. And they have a psychiatrist comes through, right? To check on people, make sure they're not being suicidal. He stopped in front of the cell I was in, looked at me and asked me, am I all right? And I looked at this guy. You got me in an isolated cell for something that I did not do, against my will, and you're gonna ask me, am I all right? That's cognitive dissonance. Right? No, I'm not all right. You're the one who's crazy. Right? And you call yourself a psychiatrist. Okay, really? Really? That's what we're confronting in this country today. We have to understand that. We have the orange dictator in the White House, 13 billionaires in his cabinet, run by white supremacists. We got troubles, people. And he's trying to end the vote. I don't know if there's going to be a midterm vote. I don't believe there's going to be one in 4 years. Okay. And so we're asking the world to come to our aid, right, to support this work that we're doing. It's important that we do so. Listen, we are confronting the brunt of fascist repression like you have never seen. We are, right? And if we don't come to our aid, we're done. Right? They're on a genocidal mode. What's happening in Palestine was, yeah, this is real. They believe in genocides. Remember the foundation of this country? The genocide of the indigenous, the enslavement of African people. That is their history, and they laud it. The Confederates laud it. It is their history. That's what we're confronting. Right? And without the support of the international community, we're done. Straight up. So it's important that we understand what we're confronting, the necessity for the international community to prepare for this struggle. Right? Behind me, we have a picture of some of our political prisoners, Kamal Siddiqui, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown. Right? We need to get them out. We need to get our comrades. Go to thejerichomovement.org. Excuse me, thejerichomovement.com. I'll put it in the right, learn about our political prisoners. This is an organization that I started while I was inside. Myself, a brother by the name of Herman Ferguson, Baba Herbert Ferguson, and a sister by the name of Sophia Asa Bukhari. They're now as ancestors. I'm the only living founding member of the Jericho movement. Right. Learn about our political prisoners and this work that we're doing. Right. Go to spearmandela.org and learn about our campaign. Right. To build what we call the People's Senate. Right. We have congressmen in Cameroon, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Tunisia. We're building our ambassadors to the world for the People's Senate. All right. So with that, I'd like to thank again George for this opportunity to speak to your audience, to share this information. If there's any questions, I'm free to open up to hear and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much indeed, Jalil, for this excellent presentation on whence we come, which way forward. And I'm sure also I would like also to hear more about the way forward. But before we do that, of course, you've also said a lot of important things, including the world that will not be free until Black people are free. But now there is a question from our colleague here, Mwalimu Kibiswa. Please, you're welcome to ask a question or make a comment.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you,
Jalil.
Jalil.
Jalil, yes. Jalil, Jalil Muntaqim.
Thank you very much, Jalil. I am from the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Yes,
Even
sir.
if we are not white there in Africa. And I usually ask myself, what is the feeling of whites who do not share that suprematism mentality, how they feel when they hear people like you and other people talking with engagement. But I've seen many of them, whites, who are fighting alongside Black people against supremacists. And thank you for them. Now, I want just to tell, because I have to leave I have another meeting at 10. I'm in the DC area, and I have another meeting. So my comment is this. What you're seeing from Rwanda to Congo, I mean, Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa, is the same fight that one ethnic group, which is ruling now Rwanda, Uganda, and it was ruling also Burundi at the time the fight started in 1996. One ethnic group want to colonize other African ethnic groups because their mindset is only limited to the superiority of the ethnic group over the others. The same way they won Uganda, that was the first step. From Uganda, they went to Rwanda. They are ruling Rwanda now. And then they invaded Congo using some kind of strategy of masking the invasion into a Congolese rebellion. And we are now at the 5th edition of that rebellion that started in October 1996. Now we have the 6th version of that rebellion named M23. On one of the 3 main drivers are ethno-nationalism supremacists and secessionists, territorial conquests, and natural resources. So those are the 3 main powers that lead that wars in the DRC.
I agree.
And I do the same call to everyone. Please help us not only to cure that suprematism into a small, I don't want to say all Tutsis. There is a group of Tutsis who are supremacists. At the same, you have a group of whites who are supremacists. So we have a fight to lead against that ideology, and that ideology led to the genocide in Rwanda. And genocide crossed the border from Rwanda to Congo. Now Congo has lost more than 10 million from 1996. So the same call I do, please help us to stop this ideology of genocide. Those who are perpetrators are today looked at as victims, and they are led by President Kagame. Let me stop there. Sorry for saying it, but that's the reality.
My dear brother, I really appreciate what you're saying. And yes, we can develop a means for we can communicate and figure out some ways how to engage in some kind of dialogue to move forward to build some form of alliance. Right? We have a common enemy. Right? The common enemy is colonialism, neo-colonialism. Okay, and that's what you're saying, that they're trying to extract the resources and wealth from out of the Congo. Okay, this is something that's going on for hundreds of years, right? We know what they did in the Belgian Congo and Leopold, right? Millions and millions of Africans were slaughtered, right? Slaughtered, genocide. This is their playbook, right? If they cannot have you cooperate with their exploitation of you and your people, then they engage in wiping you out, okay, or confining you to certain territories, right, as they did with the indigenous reservations and concentration camps. This is their playbook, all right? And so it's essential that we begin to recognize who is the real author, right, the progenitors, right, of this kind of aberrant behavior, right, on the international plane, international level. And who is it? It's the Europeans, right? European nations, right? It's their foundation, particularly the United States. Okay, so in as much as you are asking for our assistance, right, and which we will cooperate in building a base for which we can understand that, the heart of the issue is here in the United States. All right.
Yes.
I give the analogy of an octopus. All right. I give an analogy of an octopus. And you know what an octopus does, right? Has its tentacles all around the world, sucking up the resources, sucking up the labor, right, from different countries. Right. And every once in a while, a tentacle get cut off. Right? Tentacle get cut off, like they did in Chile when they had Salvador Allende, right? Get cut off, right? And then what they do, they replace it, right? With Pinochet, okay? A fascist. They put fascists in positions of power and authority, right? That's what they do. It's an octopus. The problem is the head of the octopus has not been dealt with. And that's our job. We're in the head. We're in the belly of the beast. We're in the head of the octopus. Okay? And the world, and I know the world is waiting on us. What you saying, my dear brother? I understand. You are waiting on us to take care of this business. Right? To end in this system. Okay? So the onus is on us. I know that. Right? And we got a process. We have a long, serious process. We got to go through decolonize our mentality, decolonize our minds, right? And prepare ourselves for the struggle that we have engaged in. Okay. So I understand your angst, comrade, right? But I also understand who is the primary, principal enemy of humanity.
Thank you very much.
Principal enemy of humanity, right? So let's you have my information. Let's continue to communicate. Let's see if we can build a base from which we can more substantial dialogue and conversation towards understanding the nature of each of our struggles and how we can cooperate on that level. All right. But keep in mind, right? We are in the belly of the beast. We are in the heart of the octopus. Okay. So we're gonna receive the brunt of fascist repression.
I love that analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Simon, Mary, and then Patrick. Simon, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, apologies, I came in late to the presentation. I will make some comments before I pose my question. I have written some works on identity construction, the politics of identity construction in the world of race dynamics, the politics of race as well. First of all, I think we miss a point when we focus on a descriptive analysis or narratives. It's okay to speak about what whiteness has done in the world and other. It's a global phenomenon. It's not an American problem only. It's a global reality. But we have to understand the conceptual framework. It's a philosophy. Unless you understand the philosophy behind it, then you will not understand how it operates and all that stuff. But there is also something I would want to call attention to. First of all, hyper-tribalism is a birth child of capitalism, colonialism, and all that stuff. Because tribalism, as it plays itself out today, is a high product of a scarcity mindset, a type of anthropological deficit that was propagated globally within the colonial project. So though you are not white, you are given another identity of superiority. I am better, my tribe is better than this other, and then you create a hierarchy of humanity. So that said, I think we make a big problem when we project, and it's not something that we intentionally do. It's just because sometimes we lack the language, the vocabulary for the discourse, and also the pain of the trauma, which is natural, and that's what we acknowledge. We generalize a narrative, and which hinders the ability for us to correct this monstrosity. Like a friend of mine who is German has said, there are barbarians around the world, And the barbarians are the marginalized ones. Even in the heart of Europe, there are barbarians. There are gypsies, there are Romans and all that stuff, those who do not belong. Because the scarcity mindset of capitalism produces hierarchies and a sense that nothing is sufficient. So you have to create a system of deception to be able to have access to the resources, while others, you push them out of it. So that said, both whiteness and blackness are constructs, are social constructs. They really mean nothing. What really matters is that we are human beings. Blood flows in our veins. We want to be loved. We want to be loved. And so, but because, again, I'm a theologian, so I speak as a theologian. Because we are fallen humans, and what do? We don't always live in the perfection of grace. Some of us are held captive by the demon of sin. And so we have to mess up the beautiful garden and turn it to a wilderness. So it's just the nature of our humanity. But what I have always argued is that whiteness, whoever claims white is deformed, just like whoever claims black is deformed. In the world of racism, the first person who experiences deformity is the white person who embraces the logic of racism. So rather than say, oh, the whites are the problem, we miss the point, because the whites also are hungering for a holistic humanity. It is only a humanity of solidarity within the domain of healthy solidarity that true humanity can emerge. So that said, Jalil, I'm curious. I will share the work later on after my comment. How, in your work, in your struggle, and in your own imagination, can you articulate a new way of being human that is trans black, trans white, a new vocabulary? Because these vocabularies have historical biases that are intended to hold our imagination captive. So how can we ascend into a new level of consciousness, which pulls everyone together, which says that we are all allies? Those of us who are not comfortable with the reality of the world are working actively to undo it. But we are also saying that even Donald Trump or Kigali, as Now Peace said, are also in need of authentic humanity, and we have to be generous in a manner to create a world where they can experience a type of humanity that they have never experienced before. So how does your work engage that? I'm curious to know.
That's a beautiful question. Matter of fact, it's the question that lends to a very, I'm gonna try to be as succinctly as poignant as I possibly can to answer that question, because it is extensive in terms of what you're saying. Now I can make the argument from a religious or theological, as you are, posture, or I can just on a political posture and a historical posture, anthropological position as well, right? Theologically, I'm Muslim, okay? I identify as a revolutionary Muslim, okay? I'm not a fundamentalist, right? And I understand that as a human being that I am suffering flaws, right? Subject to the social conditions from which we are raised in. We're raised in a system that's based upon that it's flawed, okay? And that therefore we are indoctrinated in certain degrees, either consciously or unconsciously, by this inhumanity that is flawed in our human existence. But the Quran teaches us, right, that God created man in tribes, right, different tribes and different nations, not so that we hate and have animosity toward each other, but so that we learn from each other and know each other. Okay, that's equality. All right. We have to learn to know each other. We have to open up the books and not burn books as they do in this country, or deny books as they do in this country. Okay, that's part of the process. Second, anthropologically, now we're going into some real deep science. Okay, in terms of who we are on this planet as compared to Europeans. Right. Now, if we want to go there, then we understand that Europeans are the last to evolve out of our human existence. Right? We have to understand that the Europeans still had genetic traits of Neanderthals. Okay. They're the last to evolve out of this human experience that we have on this planet. Right? Black people, African people been on this planet millions of years. Not them. Right? That's really like they are so violent prone. Right? Well, we are more pacifist in our thinking. We're more generous in our thinking. Because we evolve our spirituality and our understanding of our humanity has evolved to that extent. But we are not conscious of that reality. We have to become conscious of it. All right? So let's if you want to get to the heart of it, that's the heart of it. All right. So now we talk about race identity or identity in and of itself, right? Tribalism. That's the part of the conquest. Divide and conquer. Right? And who named us? Who named these tribes? These nations? Right? Because if you remember, the original name of Africa was Alkebulan. Okay. So we have to go into this history of the evolution of the migration out of Africa. Right? And understand how these people came into existence. And how they come out of existence. Okay. There are people no longer on this planet. The Phoenicians are now who? The Philistines. The Philistines became who? Now the Palestinians. It's the evolutionary process of humanity. Right? The Visigoths no longer on this planet. The Haguenots are no longer on this planet. Right? Whole race of people gone. So we know that we are evolutionary in our development. I identify myself as a revolutionary. Right? You take the R off revolution, what do you have? Evolution. We are a species in the process of always evolving. Because we don't evolve, we devolve. All right? So what you raised, my dear brother, is important. Right? But we have to be very extremely honest, brutally honest with ourselves. Right? Particularly the European. Because they don't want to be that honest. They live in the lie, okay? The deception, the distraction. So for us, it's a question of how we build greater unity in our humanity, right? And the first part of that is we have to understand the history of our humanity, where it evolved from, where it comes from, who are we on the species on this planet? That's what we are, right? We are one of many billions of species on this planet, right? But Allah tells us we are the vicegerent. Right, we are the protectors of the planet. Okay.
Can I say something? Can I say something quickly to you?
Let me just make this point here, right?
Good.
We have to develop God consciousness, right? We have to understand God consciousness. We have to understand the divinity, right, of our own existence. And where love is the parameter or the foundation of our existence. Because if you don't love yourself, you ain't gonna love nobody else. Right? And that's how Malik Shabazz taught. Who taught you to hate yourself? We've been taught not to love, but to be in competition, to be individualistic. Right? A capitalist social order is based upon two principles, right? Individualism and competition. If you remove individualism from capitalism, you don't have capitalism. If you remove competition from capitalism, you don't have capitalism. Okay. So we have to create a new social order that removes individualism and competition. Right? We have to create greater cooperation amongst ourselves. And understand that we are all on this planet together. Right? We are the vicegerent of this planet. And they're killing the planet. They're destroying the planet. Not only destroying people, they're destroying the planet. We have a big job ahead of us. So, my brother, I appreciate that question that you asked. It's very important for us to understand our humanness, right? And understand systems of divisions, right? And how do we overcome that? We have to create greater systems of unity, cooperation, alliances, right? But we can't do that if we don't understand the true history of people's existence on this planet. We got to stop living the lie. We got to be brutally honest with ourselves as a species.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Baba Jalil.
Yeah.
You wanted to clarify something, Simon?
What I just wanted to say was that we also, in the pursuit of radical honesty and historical consciousness, we cannot live in the world also of a false utopia of blackness. Blacks have committed atrocities, the history of humanity. So evil is not a monopoly of Europe. As I have argued that before. So my own work is experiencing type of conversion. The slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trades were perpetuated by Arabs, so not the Europeans for 1,000+ years. So there's a type of maturity of facing the mirror and I love what Jalil is talking about, a historical honesty, that everyone has to face the mirror and say, we are all capable of monstrosities if all the factors align well and we have access to wealth. Look at Israel today is carrying out genocide against Palestinians, and they were the victims of genocide in the past. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We'll take 3 questions from Patrick, Janet, and Amani, and then Jalil can respond to that. You are welcome, Patrick. Oh, the sound isn't coming through.
You're muted, Patrick. We cannot hear you, Patrick.
Patrick, you have no sound, and though you are...
We see your lips moving, but we can't hear your voice.
Right. Maybe as you try to figure that out, Patrick, let's go to Janet and try to adjust your program to your machine, please. Janet, you're welcome.
Thank you, George. And Jalil, thank you for your presentation. Seen you before as I attended the most recently I attended the tribunal at the Malcolm X Center and on genocide, and I attended the declaration of the jury at the UN Plaza in and so I was extremely moved, extremely educated by it. And I was, first of all, I was extremely impressed. And I think in answer to someone else's question, you might go back and revisit that slide where you described all the programs of expanding generosity and abundance to the marginalized, poor, Black, etc. And I was especially impressed by the effort to get aged prisoners out of prison. That effort, anyway. That was new to me. Okay, but here's my question. I wonder, did you write the 1948 Declaration on Genocide that you're describing? Or who wrote that? And here's the question that no one at the tribunal could answer. Why aren't you using the current writing on genocide from the UN? Because that, in my opinion, but I'm just, me, in my opinion, that would boost your historically grounded argument and the expansion of the efforts to resist genocide. Mm-hmm. So those are my questions. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Before Jalil will respond to that, I don't know, Patrick, whether you've solved that technical.
Okay.
Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
No, thank you so much, Baba Jalil and George. Okay, just a quick one. Is just also want to add on the question that has been asked by Prof. Kibiswa. And also, I fully agree with Simon Mary that race is something that is socially constructed. So that is the truth, because the place where I am, we do have four different type of races. You have black, white, colored, and Indians. But in places like the United States of America, you do have only two races, is black and white. So you can be only white or black. So those are the things that I can say that is something that is really socially constructed. So regarding my question, and that is something that I wanted to add on what Prof. Kibiswa said about Black supremacists. So based on your knowledge, Baba Jalil, what can be the strategy that we can use to try to bring solution or to combat Black supremacists first, and especially those one who are ready to collaborate with white supremacists to recolonize again the African continent? And what can be the difference between a Black supremacist and a white supremacist as well? So that's only a clarity that I want from you, Baba Jalil. Thank you so much.
And then
That's
we go
beautiful.
to Amani,
Okay.
and then Jalil will respond.
Okay.
Please
Yeah,
unmute.
I was really just interested by the discourse, and I wanted to provide kind of another perspective because I've heard a lot of people use the term maybe colorblind. They're like, "Oh, I don't see color," and that kind of introduces like another level of issues because it's a denial of visual history, kind of as what you were talking about before is Jalil, is with the accumulation of different genetic bloodlines all mixed into Black people in the US. And, there's names for it that we created ourselves as well. Like there wouldn't be Mzungu without white people in Africa, and there wouldn't be Yellowbone without the French in Louisiana. And I was talking with a friend in Germany, in Berlin, who is an Armenian refugee, but grew up primarily in Russia and then primarily in his adult life lived in Germany. And when we were speaking about like kind of racial discourse, I said the term biracial, and he had never heard anyone use the term biracial before. He stopped me in the conversation. He was like, wait. I've never heard anyone. What does that mean? I've never heard anyone say that. I'm like, oh, it's literally as it is. It's biracial. It's two races. And so, kind of like what Patrick is saying is, um, with like, you can be two things or you can be mixed. But I also wanted to say that in Africa, I am perceived as white. And in the US, I'm perceived as racially ambiguous. But oftentimes, I'm perceived mostly as mixed race. But at the same time, as all of these are facts, at the same time, I've been called the N-word on three different continents. So it kind of brings into that like idea is if you reject the idea of race entirely, then you also reject the history and the pain and the trauma of the people that have, gone through it. And we have our own terms, and they can be separated from white supremacy, but they have just in white culture they've systemically degraded each other, and uh, it's our prerogative to not do that when we talk about race as well. We don't degrade ourselves to, oh, it's not a black and white concept. And by doing so, you erase that intersectionality by saying, oh, no, we shouldn't have race at all. People could take that a step further. It's like, why bother with gender at all? Why bother with classism at all? It's because that intersectionality, that history that you carry not only in your personhood, but in your experiences as well, it it comes together, and it's something that just I think is very interesting discourse, but yeah, I don't think it should be erased.
Yeah, thanks so much, Aman. Jalil, please welcome and respond to those.
Okay. First of all, let me what brother Simon made the offer, right? It's important to understand that we have a common humanity on this planet, right? And we need to raise that common humanity the best way we possibly can. As Sister Amani raised her concerns are how we have this construct that divides us rather than unites us. Okay, so how do we come to a terminology, right, that explores and explains the species, this human reality that we are confronting? But we're not there yet. We have not evolved. Remember, I used the word revolutionary in the evolution, right? We have not evolved to that level, but we're in the process of doing so. That's a revolutionary process, right? Where we began to erase this history of division, erase this history of dehumanization. Okay, that's the process we are into today, and we're in the last bastion of this aberrant construct. Talking about the United States, this European settler colonial ideology or philosophy. Okay, this aberrant philosophy. So for us, it is important that we come to understand that we are indeed a species on the planet, right? That we have commonalities in terms of our survival on this planet, right? We cannot allow them to destroy the planet, because the destroyed planet is to destroy all of human existence. Okay, and that's the point from where I would say is the intersectionality, right? Is that we're all on this planet together, right? And we have to raise our consciousness to that level of the degree of understanding that we're all in it to win it, right? That we're all in it together. Okay, we're not there yet. Again, we are a traumatized nation. We are a traumatized world, right? Subject to this aberrant idea of colonialism that came from, again, 1493. That's where it began. That's for where we came from. I read in the chat, Brother Peter, he's talked about Scotland and how his people was subject to genocide. This is a European experience, right? Europeans were fighting each other for ages, fighting each other. Okay, and I think in similar aspects in parts of Africa. Okay, tribal warfare, right? Unfortunately, this is something that is an aberrant conditioning of the human experience. Okay, and this is the reason why we need to evolve, right, in our consciousness. And the only way that we can do so, in my thinking, right, that we have to accept the reality that we are a species, a whole species on the planet. Not individual groupings of species, but an entire species, a human species on this planet. All right? But we're not there yet. We got a ways to go. Maybe another 100 years, okay, before we evolve on our own consciousness. All right? I remember watching the TV series Star Trek, and they have all these aliens, you know what I mean? Although Star Trek was imperialist, okay? It was an imperialist expansion into the universe. But look at the different groupings of aliens, right? That was brought into that world. We got to get to there, right? We have to get there, okay? Because I think that was symbolic of the planet itself, okay? And where we need to go, where we need to evolve, okay, as a species on the planet. All right. So that is the process, sis. All right, Simon. And again, you know, we have a ways to go, right, as species on this planet. But because we have this conversation, because we're raising these kind of hard questions, lends us in that direction. All right. So that's important for us to know, right? We're moving in the right direction. It could be a hard slog, right? Because they give you an example, right? African people in this country, right? Over 400 years in this country. Where's our ancestral homeland? Right? Black Belt South. The majority of African people still live in the Black Belt South. That's our ancestral territory, ancestral homeland. Is the Black Belt South. Okay, but we have to come to that realization, right? And so we pray to the divine, whoever name you want to name them, or her, or it, or whatever you want to name the divine, the spiritual force that links us together, right? Because we are spiritual beings as well. Okay, and that's when we really get to imagine our future, we're gonna come to recognize that we are spiritual beings. Okay, I mean we can go to the physics of it, the physics of it, you know. As one time I gave a presentation, I knocked on the desk I was standing on, right? I knocked on the microphone I was holding in my hand. I knocked on my chest. What's the difference between the three? Right? The construction of the atoms, how they constructed, right? But we're all comprised of the same atoms. Out of the 123 known elements of the planet, I think we're 96 our human species. Or 103 of the elements of this planet, of the cosmos. Okay. But we don't think in that level. When I see my neighbor, I see that's another astronaut. You know what I mean? We don't think that on that high level of our own divinity. And we have to get there. It's an evolutionary process, right? And the process is bloody. It's messy. Okay. But for those of us who has elevated in our consciousness, we have to take the lead. We have to find the courage within ourselves. We have to find what? The love. Right? Che Guevara once stated that he never know. He said revolution is motivated by love. He said he cannot recognize or understand a revolutionary not being motivated by love. And what's that love? The love of humanity. Okay. So that is the principle. And this is also said in theology that God is love. So we have to have God consciousness. Okay. And if we can't find love in your heart for your fellow human being, then you're a lost soul. All right. So since identity is an issue, Simon, identity politics is an issue that we have to address, and the only way to do it is we have to take it to the highest level. And the highest level for me is that the construct of black, white, Asian, etc., is a construct of division. Okay, and for us, we will leave to a higher level understanding that we are all a species on this planet. All right, and we have to learn to evolve to that degree. As in my tradition, right, he created tribes and nations not so we have enmity for each other, but so we can begin to learn and know of each other. Right, and they don't teach that in the schools. Imagine they're teaching that in the schools of all the nations, right, as many as they possibly can. And we raise our children in that capacity. What kind of world will we live in? Yeah. Wow. That'd be fantastic. We're not there yet. We got to get rid of this beast this octopus, right? It got to go for us to take to the next level of our evolution experience on this planet. Donna.
Yes, please go ahead, Donna. Welcome, Donna Pido. Please unmute your microphone, Donna, if you hear us. Yes.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I unmuted it. I have one small comment.
Sorry, Donna, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Something's wrong with your microphone. Can you get a little closer to your mic, or either turn off your video so we can hear only your audio?
It's looking like my. Oh, okay, doing that. Can you hear me now?
Better, a lot better.
There's this green thing jumping up and down. What?
What's your question, Donna?
I'm just going to say this. I wanted to make a comment. You mentioned at the beginning that Malcolm said something about Black people hating themselves. And I wanted to point out that Jews have a thing called Selbsthassen, which is either German or Yiddish, I don't know which. And that is Jewish self-hatred. And you should maybe ask your rabbi about that, because the Jews have been trying to deal with it for 300 or 400, maybe 700 years. That they, at some point, they have fallen for the boyish interpret to self-hatred. So blacks are not alone in hating themselves. Just thought I'd mention that, and you could ask your rabbi and your neighbors if you live in New York, just who can tell you about Jewish self-hatred.
I do have a rabbi. I have a Rabbi Dora Sattel. She's one of my confidants that I go to, and one I go to every once in a while. But I understand the point that you're making. But I think it's also important for us to understand what's going on in Palestine, the basis of what you call a self-hatred or Jewish hatred. Because we know that the Ashkenazi, right, what they're doing over there in Zionism is a settler colonial project. Okay, and we know also the Ashkenazis are Europeans who converted to Judaism back in the 6th century. Okay, so it's important for us to understand in that instance, right, that these Europeans are the ones who are colonizing Palestine.
I don't believe that.
All right. So again, the issue of self-hatred.
Well, you must know that. Why they hate themselves so much.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a question of the Europeans.
Palestinians have the right to return with Jews, but Jews don't have that right, do they? Yeah. Don't look skeptical. That's the Palestinian line, that the Jews don't have the right to come home unless Palestinians who are mostly Muslim and who want to charge people an extra tax in their own territory for being Jewish. Let's get that one straight. There's not enough time now to get into that discussion.
No, we don't have enough time now, but I think that you agree that the Ashkenazi are converts to Judaism. You agree with that?
No, they're not. The Ashkenazim are connected to the Sephardim. They were separated. That's what Sephardim means, separated. They are the Spanish and Mediterranean Rim Jews. But the Ashkenazim were Jews when they got to Germany. Okay? And anybody who's telling you that they were converts is just full of, you know what.
Okay, thank you, Donna. I appreciate that.
You need to look a little bit more deeply into that, because there are lots to justify the Jewish return to their original homeland, because the Palestinians think they have a greater claim. Now, I looked this up several years ago. It's true that the Palestinians have spent more time, by about 80 or 90 years, in the territory that they have on and off shared with Jews. That's over a 3,000-year period. That's not enough.
Yeah, thank you so much, Donna. I've made your point. And now, since we are running out of time,
Go ahead, George.
yes,
I would like to get into that argument now.
I would like to ask Jalil to, first of all, thank you, Jalil, for this wonderful presentation. And I thank everybody on this call. If you could say just a few words, just as we, call this off until next week. Jalil, please.
Again, George, I want to thank you for the invitation to make this presentation to your audience. You have an esteemed body, a group of people who are naturally well-versed in history and understanding the dynamics of the world that we're engaged in. I just want to emphasize the point that we are, in fact, the belly of the beast. We are in the head of the octopus, right? We see what's going on in this country today in regards to this establishing a fascist, plutocratic entity, right? Who is bent on engaging in genocidal excursions. Okay, and for us, it's important that we inform the world that we are in fact fighting back. All right, that we are engaged in resisting the system. Right, but our success has to be dependent upon developing a core cooperation amongst other forces that are resisting the systems of oppression around the world, right? Note that when we end this, and we will win, right? When we end this system of U.S. imperialism, of colonialism, of the systems of white supremacy, that we will essentially free the world so we can go to the next transitional evolutionary process as a species on this planet. And with that, I say thank you. I hope to gain your support. I presented you the information. Contact Spirit of Mandela .org, right? And also Jericho National Movement, Jericho campaign. And for us to recognize that our struggle is your struggle, and your struggle is our struggle. We're all in it together. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Jalil. Thank you very much indeed. And before we close, I'd like to invite you to a presentation that I'll be making tomorrow. I've been given the honor of speaking to the Stellenbosch UNESCO chair on intercultural competencies for peace building in Africa, road to global peace. If you look at the invitation that I sent you a few days ago, you will find the link and you can register. You are welcome, because I'll be actually talking about Global Peace Africa, MAMA, the work that we've been doing, which has been inspiring to me. And so we can learn together. And so please welcome to join us to be at the same time as our webinar here at 4 o'clock our time here in East Africa. So thank you very much, and bye-bye for now.